Hey, what's going on guys, this is AndrewChicken and welcome back to another video. With two of the classes out of the way, it's time to crack on with supports, the most important class in Paladins. Supports are responsible for keeping their team alive by healing and providing their team with extra buffs, or crowd controlling and debuffing the enemies. Supports can be divided into two subclasses, main and off supports. In this video, I'll be giving my opinions for the top 5 best main supports in Paladins, and then next week, I'll be publishing a second video for the best off supports. But what is a main support? Main supports are the backbone of any team, as they're the ones who pump out gobs of healing to keep their team alive. Main supports are a mandatory role to have on your team, because without one, you will heavily lack healing and then lose. Now, before we get started, I need to go over a few disclaimers. First, this list is from a keyboard and mouse perspective. The support meta in this game can be a bit different depending on your input type, since controller players don't get to take advantage of their powerful aim assist to heal teammates, while keyboard and mouse players have no trouble using the supports which require aim to heal. While I doubt this list will look strange from a controller perspective, I still want to put this disclaimer here just in case. Also, it's very important for me to iterate that this list is just my opinion. You shouldn't take it as gospel, and if your opinion differs, that is absolutely fine. Most support champions are good if you take the time to master them, so if you find someone who is not on this list to be fun and powerful, that's fantastic. Make sure to let me know who you think are the strongest main supports in the comment section down below. Just don't forget to keep the discussion respectful. But if this is just my opinion, then why does my opinion matter? Well, I'm a seasoned veteran at this game with far too many hours, and I've reached Masters in 3 separate seasons. I've seen just about everything this game has to offer, and my abundance of experience has guided the placements on this list. I'm not a perfect player, but I think it's safe to say I know a thing or two about this game. And finally, if you're watching this in the future, this list may be outdated. This list is from Season 5, or 2022. If you're in a different season or a different year, then take these placements with a grain of salt. This is reflective of the meta at the time of writing, not necessarily of the meta in the future. But with all those hefty disclaimers out of the way, let's go ahead and get straight into the video. Number 5. Maldamba. In the number 5 spot we have the most respectable support in Paladins, Maldamba. Damba is an extremely balanced support with good healing, crowd control, and damage capabilities. He can heal both tanks and DPS consistently, and he can save teammates with his powerful stuns and ultimate. He also requires decent skill to use, since he is one of the only supports in Paladins who requires aim to heal, and also has one of the more difficult primary fires to use. First, let's talk about his healing output. Damba has 2 ways to heal his team, Mending Spirits and Gourd. Mending Spirits is great for healing agile champions, especially with Spirits Chosen, since it only requires 1 application and then stays with them for the next 4 seconds. It does a good amount of healing over its duration, though the actual healing per second is on the lower side. However, it stacks with the area healing from the Gourd, which is best for healing tanks or stationary targets. Gourd is an extremely useful ability, because it allows Maldamba to keep himself alive, dump good healing into a target alongside Mending Spirits, and provide consistent healing to friendly tanks on the point while damaging the enemy tanks at the same time. While the damage and healing per second are both relatively low, they're still very consistent and help to amplify the healing and damage from his other abilities. When combined with his weapon, he actually has decent DPS for support. However, his damage is severely limited by his range, since his weapon has a steep arc and the Gourd can't deal damage if the enemy doesn't stand in it. Still, with some good aim, Maldamba isn't bad when it comes to self-defense. And what separates his weapon from the rest is the fact that when Maldamba reloads, he throws his snake, which stuns an enemy if it hits them. With a bit of deft hands, this is an extremely consistent and potent form of crowd control that can actually force an enemy to buy resilience, especially when combined with his ultimate. Speaking of his ultimate, Maldamba's ultimate is a powerful one. Dread Serpent sends out a projectile which can be manually detonated to explode in a massive sphere that pierces through shields and fears any enemy which steps into the area for the next few seconds. This crowd control can help Maldamba easily defend himself from a flank, save an ally, or make an important enemy vulnerable for his team to finish him off. While it can be countered by resilience, just having the ability to interrupt an enemy for half a second can still get them killed, or at the very least hinder their effort to kill somebody. However, what if Damba has to deal with a threat that he can't solve with crowd control or damage like King Bomb? Well, Damba has a great tool for the job, his Slither. Slither makes Damba ethereal, a state where he's untouchable by enemies but can still be healed. He also dashes in whichever direction he points, though he can't travel upwards. This is a useful ability for dodging powerful damage ultimates, crowd control abilities, and other nasty things you don't want to get hit by. Overall, Maldumba's kit is very useful. He has good utility, healing, and self-defense potential. He is a very solid choice for support and very fun too. However, the reason why he only ranks number 5 is because nothing really stands out about him. While he's solid in every department, he doesn't excel at anything. But that's why he's such a respectable and great support. He is very well balanced and has a skillful yet fun kit. If he had some tiny number tweaks, he'd be the perfect support. Number 4. Seris. In the number 4 spot we have the best entry-level support, Seris. Seris is by far the easiest support on this list, and she can also provide great value to her team with her healing and crowd control. This makes her a great support to pick up for new players, but also not a horrible option for experienced players to fall back on. She's got some of the most dependable healing in the game with her Restore Soul, which heals for 1000 healing per second and has a tiny cooldown of just 1.5 seconds. It also heals everyone in a radius around the initial target for a percentage of the original heal, so she has both good single target and area healing. And the icing on the cake is that it's auto-aim, so there's no skill required to cast this ability. Just point it vaguely in the direction of the teammate you want to heal, and you'll heal them. Seris also has a great escape ability in the form of Shadow Travel, which makes her ethereal and invisible for 4 seconds. It has a long cast time, but with the card Veil in your build at level 5, the cast time becomes close to instant. If Seris gets dove and the enemies don't cripple her or burst her down lightning fast, she will be able to safely escape. But if Seris is forced to fight, she's got some good options. Her primary fire is huge and pierces through enemies, but it's also super slow. So it's very easy to track enemies who aren't super evasive and spam the point, but not at all easy to track highly mobile targets such as Maeve or Eevee. But if a target is too evasive for Seris to track normally, that's no problem. All she has to do is manage to hit 4 shots on an enemy, and then she can use Ren Soul to stun them in place and heal herself for a huge amount of health. From that point, it's pretty easy to gun them down and force them to scurry away when the stun is over. Her stun also works excellently with her ultimate, which is a giant vacuum that sucks all the enemies nearby into one convergence point, making it easy for her to blast all of them and then stun them again after the stun from being pulled in expires. This ultimate also pairs excellently with other area damage ultimates, such as Bomb Kings or Victor's. And it recently got the ability to be manually detonated in midair, allowing her to more easily bypass shields such as Fernando's and Barrack's, which would otherwise block it. Overall, it's a very nice ultimate. Seris has some great utility, superb healing, and solid survivability. She's also extremely easy to play, and almost anyone can pick her up and provide some value for their team. What holds her back from ranking higher on this list, however, is that she's very much a heal bot. Because her heal is channeled, she's often only able to do healing for the majority of the match. Compared to other supports, her damage potential is much lower when she's played as a main healer, because she's so heal body. And when late game Cauterize rolls around, it's not a good thing to only be healing for 50% of the time. Despite this setback, she's still a strong enough main support to make it to the number 4 spot on this list. Number 3. Grover. In the number 3 spot we have some weird sentient wood that makes us feel good? Otherwise known as Grover. Grover got reworked recently, losing some of the most powerful utility in the game while gaining a major boost to his healing output. Even with the removal of Deeproot's ability to root enemies, he's still a phenomenal hybrid support and the most consistent area healer in the game. Grover has a number of strong things going for him, but let's start with his healing output. Grover is the only healer in the game who can heal his team without doing anything, because he has a passive healing aura that heals anyone within a large radius around him. Because it's so consistent, it's also very small, only clocking in at 80 healing per second. Still, this tickle of healing can help counteract the tickle of damage from the damage over time effects that are all too common nowadays, and slowly but surely top someone off just by being close by. Grover also has the ability to perform a burst heal with his Blossom, which heals everyone in his radius for 650 healing instantly, and then an additional 300 over 2 seconds. And with the new version of Rampant Blooming, he basically has a miniature charge of Blossom on his Vine. Whenever he vines to somebody, he performs a burst heal of 500 with a further 300 over time in a smaller radius than his Blossom. While it's admittedly not the most impressive single target healing in the game, what makes it phenomenal is that it can apply to everyone on the team if they're all grouped up, including Grover himself. You see, another nice thing about Grover is that all of his healing applies to himself, giving him fantastic survivability. Some other supports struggle to heal themselves, or have to sacrifice healing their team to heal themselves. Damba, for example, has to choose whether he uses his gourd to heal himself or heal a teammate, while Grover doesn't have to make that decision. Another excellent boon to Grover's survivability is his Vine. As mentioned before, the talent Rampant Blooming allows him to heal himself and others with his Vine, but the real bread and butter of the Vine is just how good its mobility is. Vine allows Grover to quickly travel in any direction, and if you learn Vine Tech, you can actually travel halfway across the map with just a single use of the ability. Vine Tech, by the way, is where you hold the Vine button down, target an area that can be vined to, release the button, then quickly flick to an area that can't be vined to before the vine touches terrain. This doesn't work in the shooting range, but I highly recommend you try and practice this in a bot match or custom game because it is seriously powerful tech. One other thing to mention about Grover is that unlike some healers such as Ceres, none of Grover's healing abilities are channeled. So, Grover can throw axes the entire match, giving him constant damage output that other supports simply don't have. His DPS isn't super high in close quarters, but it does scale up at range. And of course, if Grover is too close to a target, he can Vine Tech away as mentioned earlier. But what if Grover is getting chased by someone like Seven? Sure, he can run away, but Seven will catch up in a jiffy. Well, don't fret, because Grover has the ability to cripple enemies with his Crippling Throw, which is the ability that neatly wraps up all the loose ends of his kit into a nice pretty package. Crippling Throw has a low cooldown, can be used in between swings for a burst combo, stops enemies from using their movement abilities, and also allows him to lower the cooldown of his Blossom and Vine with these cards here. This one ability has incredible utility, since it's used for crowd control, damage, and reducing the cooldown of his healing abilities. It's a really nice ability to round out his entire playstyle. Lastly, his ultimate is the best healing ability in the game for concentrating a gigaton of healing onto as many targets as possible. While it is technically the second highest healing ability in the game, just behind a Solar Blessing from Furia, it has a much greater range than Furia's, so it's much more flexible than one of her beams. It's much easier to heal multiple targets with Grover's ult than it is a beam, and the healing output can be life-saving, especially in early game when Cauterize isn't extremely high. It also grants Grover crowd control immunity, which is just the cherry on top. The only big problem with Grover is his healing range. Grover's healing has a tiny range in comparison to Maldamba or Ceres with Mortal Reach, so he has to be a lot closer to the fight, and thus in more danger. It also makes it a little bit harder for Grover to heal players in some cases. Still, Grover is an extremely solid support who has great area healing, utility, damage, and mobility. I have no real complaints about Grover, other than the fact that we were lied to about his healing radius being made visible. Where is it, high res? Give it to me! Number 2. Io. Calm down, I owe you an explanation for this one. In the number 2 spot we have the upgraded version of Ceres, Io. Io expands on the damage and utility of Ceres while having a similar healing ability that is better for keeping a single target alive. Just like Ceres, Io has a channeled heal that heals for 1000 healing per second. However, instead of having a cooldown, this one drains from a resource pool. So, Io can switch targets at the drop of a hat, and she can sustain her beam of healing onto a single target for a much more extended period of time. This makes her healing even more flexible than the already flexible healing of Ceres, just at the cost of the area healing that Ceres is known for. However, Io isn't without options for area healing or utility. Meet Luna, the glorified Grok Totem and Barrack Turret hybrid. This good girl sits in place and can heal nearby allies for 300 healing per second with the talent Lifelink, giving Io a second source of healing independent of her main beam. Luna also attacks any nearby enemies in an attack chain not too dissimilar from Zin's. So even while Io is busy channeling her main heal, Luna can still be dishing out damage. However, if Io chooses to attack someone and hits at least one shot on an enemy, Luna will charge after them to bite them, stunning them in place. This, coupled with the amount of damage Io and Luna can do together, can actually be quite effective against an enemy flanker. Io can also use Luna to body block, further increasing her survivability. Luna is big, both in size and in health pool. She has 4000 HP, making her one difficult dog to take out. And of course, by body blocking with Luna, Io also gets self-healed from the talent Lifelink. So Io's ability to use Luna to block damage, stun an enemy, heal herself, and deal further damage alongside the powerful damage from her own bow makes her one of the hardest supports to duel in the support class. However, if things get too spicy and Io needs to reposition quickly, she has a great tool for that in her Lunar Leap. This catapults her backwards, kind of like an inverted buck leap. This helps her quickly reposition, and can also help her reach some high grounds that other supports would struggle to reach. The only real issue with this leap is that it's bad in tight spaces, and it requires more map knowledge than other abilities do so that you don't accidentally send yourself plunging into the ocean. The only sort of weak part of Io's kit is her ultimate, but it's still pretty useful for a few different things. Io casts a modified version of Ceres' Convergence, which sucks enemies in a much smaller radius and sends them flying off into the distance. They're incapacitated while in the ultimate, and they take 800 damage if they hit a wall. That is, assuming you don't just send them off the map, where most champions will have a very difficult time surviving. This makes the ult decent at getting kills or stopping enemies from flanking you, and can also be used to push enemies off the objective during overtime. Another great thing about the ult is that it makes IO damage immune and crowd control immune while casting it, making it useful for surviving powerful ultimates or combos in a pinch. It's not the most potent ult in the support class, but it's still useful as a survival tool. IO is a consistent healer with powerful single target healing. She has great survivability because she's one of the toughest duelists in the support class, and the utility Luna provides is amazing. Like Ceres, IO is also pretty easy to pick up, though she does take a bit more practice than her Abyssal counterpart. Because of all this, IO earns the number 2 spot on this list. Now, before we get into the number 1 spot, I want to discuss one honorable mention: Corvus. Corvus fills a particular niche like no other, the niche of pocketing flanks. Corvus can mark 2 teammates with spreading influence and then be able to heal them no matter where they are on the map, which is something no other support can perform as consistently. Corvus also provides a slew of buffs that can be amazing for a champion like Androxus or Buck. Through his loadout cards, he can grant lifesteal, movement speed, and damage reduction, and through the talent Dark Gifts, he can also stack on reload speed, crowd control reduction, and cooldown reduction. Corvus also has high damage output with his Officer's Pistol, boasting some of the most impressive close-range DPS in the support class. And his movement ability is fantastic, when it works. However, Corvus' ultimate is less than impressive. It's basically a glorified tire bomb, dealing percent-based damage and slowing enemies in an area about the size of the objective. It's fine, but it's nothing to write home about. On top of that, the glaring weakness with Corvus is that the healing he provides is relatively weak. He can heal teammates from across the map and grant countless buffs, but it comes at the cost of his healing output. His healing only starts to feel good and consistent when he gets Chronos 3, but at that point in the match, Cauterize has already ramped up immensely. It's hard to keep a tank alive, and it's even harder to keep the person with the mark alive when you aren't healing them directly. So Corvus falls just short of making it onto this list. However, he was still deserving of an honorable mention because of the niche he fills, and because any flank with a Corvus pocket is a force to be reckoned with. Number 1. Furia. In the number 1 spot we have Furia, the Angel of Vengeance. Furia is the champion who can easily keep her team topped off while also boasting incredible damage and the best ultimate in the game. Unlike her sister who fell to the abyss, Furia delivers her heal in the form of a burst, meaning she spends far less time healing and far more time being able to deal damage, kind of like Grover. Furia can instantly restore 1000 health to the person she targets, and provide an additional 400 over the next 2 seconds. It has double the cooldown of Ceres's, but still has a very short cooldown nonetheless. And another reason why her burst heal is much better than Ceres's sustained heal is that it scales far better into late game Cauterize. If a teammate gets out of Cauterize for a split second, they can be healed back up to full health almost instantly, especially with the talent Cherish. Cherish also has incredible range, allowing Furia to heal anybody anywhere on the map, as long as they give her line of sight. If Furia only has a fifth of a second to heal someone without Cauterize, she can provide them much more healing than Ceres or any other sustained healer can. A good Furia player can still keep a team alive even into late game as long as she pays good attention to who needs healing the most and who is out of Cauterize for a quick top off. Furia also has one of the best weapons in the support class. At base, its damage might feel a bit clunky, but as Furia heals to charge her Wrath meter, her fire rate increases by up to 30%. She can have close to 1000 DPS at max Wrath, which is super impressive. Her shotgun is also incredibly easy to aim and has relatively good falloff, making her a menacing foe to face. Furia can also combine her weapon with her Pyre Strike, which sends out a beam of light that stuns whoever it hits. It pierces through all terrain, so no cover is safe from Furia's vengeance. With the talent Exterminate, the beam stops on the enemy it hits and ramps up damage, allowing Furia to decimate an enemy if she has max Wrath. And with the talent Solar Blessing, Furia gains access to the most powerful concentrated heal in the game. Solar Blessing heals for 3000 healing per second and lasts for 4 seconds. Its radius is tiny, but its healing is huge. While it's certainly powerful, it's also hard to play around because it forces its target to stand still due to its tiny radius. While it's less consistent than Cherish and picked significantly less often, it's still worth mentioning just for the fact that it's got the highest healing per second out of any ability in the game. Furia's movement ability is probably the most lackluster part of her kit, since it's a backwards dash like Io's but without the verticality. While it doesn't have the problem of being bad in tight spaces like Io's, it can't travel upwards, and it doesn't give her any form of immunity like Maldamba's Slither or Ceres' Shadow Travel. What it does do, however, is fire out 3 homing orbs that deal 600 damage in total, which she can combo with her beam and weapon to dump damage into a target. And lastly, we can't forget her ultimate. This is arguably the most powerful ultimate in the game, or at the very least the most powerful ultimate in the support class. Furia's ultimate provides her and all nearby teammates 30% increased weapon damage and movement speed for 8 seconds, and she fully reloads the weapons of all teammates. Basically, she giga-buffs everyone, allowing her entire team to overpower the enemies and win basically any team fight assuming that her teammates are competent. And of course, the icing on the cake is that she can fly and is damage and crowd control immune while initially casting the ultimate, allowing her to reach high ground she wouldn't normally be able to access and survive any incoming heavy damage or crowd control abilities. There is no better ultimate for allowing a team to push hard into the enemies, and it is perfect for engaging at the start of a round, pushing back onto the objective, or making a last stand when she is about to lose the game. However, you shouldn't make the mistake of blowing her ultimate just by using it as a survival tool. It's meant to be used with the team when the team needs it most, not just whenever you want. But when used at the right time, it is seriously impressive. And of course, it can be combined with other excellent ults to make sure that the enemy team has no choice but to lose. If you've ever been pushed by a team who is using Grok and Furia ult at the same time, you know what I mean. Furia also has excellent synergy with Rey. Because Rey can grant ultimate charge to her teammates, Furia can use her ultimate even more often when she's on the team. Rey can also provide further healing and utility alongside the damage and powerful burst heals Furia also pumps out, making this one of the best duo support combos in the game. Furia has excellent burst healing that scales well into late game, some of the most powerful damage in the support class, a stun that ignores cover, and the best ultimate in the game. She is an extremely powerful and fun support, who easily secures the #1 spot on this list. But with that being said, that's going to be the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed this video and maybe learned a thing or two about the characters we discussed. Do you agree with my placements, or do you think someone else should take the #1 spot? Please let me know in the comment section down below, and while you're down there, don't forget to subscribe for more content like this from me. Also, if you want to find players to party up with, consider joining my Discord server linked in the description, and you can also find me streaming on Twitch, which is linked in the same place. Lastly, if you want to support me and this channel, then consider making your next crystal purchase at nexus.gg/AndrewChicken. There, you can buy crystals, the season pass, and more, and support me in the process. But with that being said, thank you guys for watching, I will see you all next time, peace out.